victory. We're going to check in with our analysts.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. A 17-game winning streak broken for TSM by Phoenix One here in Game 2 of this series. You know, everybody walking into this one was saying, oh, this will be a 2-0, especially after the first game. Especially after the first game, we're looking at this going, all TSM has to do, just run, just do it one more time, right? It looked so clean the first game, but Phoenix One here, starting in the draft, throwing curveballs at TSM. They're not going to let them breathe during this game.
I think there were a couple interesting things in the draft. First off, just the team comp for P1. We had said that they obviously struggle when they have these like low engaged teams, and when they have an easier like press R engage, like an Ashe, a Sivir, a Hecarim, and whatever. This time they get it with the Sivir and the Rengar, and you saw that they were able to make so many more plays around the map. And the other thing that I look at is TSM last picking the Lucian. I feel like you already saw P1's bot lane pretty early on. They can take the Lucian, hide the Trundle, and look for a better comp. I honestly don't think that would have changed the game too much, but it just seems like a draft mistake to me.
I think they were just looking to snowball the game, and maybe this is where complacency comes in. There's a lot of plays where they look like they're going to snowball the early game, but there's just a lot of mistakes in general. But the draft for P1 was actually really solid coming back into the next series, or the next game, because they kind of just threw out everything out the window. It's like, all right, we're going to go full solo queue. We're going to press R on Malzahar, press R on Rumble, like press R on Rengar, good Rengar jungling by Enori. Like, there's just so many things to talk about.
Yeah, very much so. And as you see here on your screen, a quiet TSM being talked to by their coach Weldon right now. This is a blow they haven't felt in quite some time. As I mentioned, 17-game winning streak. So they haven't even dropped the game in quite a few weeks now. The whole readjustment, not that these players aren't familiar with being in a best of series and dropping a game, they haven't gone through it in a while. So this whole, I have to assess what went exactly wrong, especially against a team and a composition that they definitely have not played against prior to this, is definitely going to be a task for them here in this 10-minute turnaround.
I feel like comp, regardless, there's a lot of really, really big blunders. Now, I know it's going to sound like I'm downplaying P1, because P1, they played it well, but there was a lot of really bronze mistakes that we saw in this game. But other than that, what's really important for TSM is that how they take this loss. Like, they're not gonna, if they're like truly the top team, they're gonna not tilt. They're just gonna go into the next game, play solidly, and not do a lot of dumb stuff.
Well, and that's the thing. And then Phoenix One on your screens now. The question is, how will they use this win? How will they use the momentum of this victory moving into Game 3? That's for us to figure out. But I want to talk about some of the mistakes that you mentioned, Dyrus. The fact that TSM, even if we remove Phoenix One's good play, still had many things that they can criticize in their own play. And this starts 7:50 into the game. A 3-for-2 Phoenix One bot lane dive. TSM not respecting the roams.
Right, you have to know this is coming. Talia just went top, and TSM is under the turret with a wave crashing, and they knew Rengar was bot side just prior to this. And then once Doublelift dies for sticking under a turret you shouldn't have, Biofrost just tries to walk back up, and once again, here comes Enori now, and he's on top of you.
And there's no flash.
Right, and Bio didn't have flash that whole time, whereas at least like Doublelift had his summoners. Here, there's no excuse for trying to walk up there, but good on TSM for trying to turn this back and not letting plays get away unpunished. This is a long chase down. They have a deep ward, and Trundle's going to TP in. It's not even that deep of a ward. Yeah. It's kind of in a forward brush, but they're able to turn this.
Because of the good play top by Bjerg, Hanser was able to use his TP for bottom and still be a little bit stronger than Rumble here, and they were just able to turn this. Although they didn't play it perfectly here and probably could have got more, it was a really good punish to the overextension.
Yeah, so they do salvage a little bit here on the back end of this replay. Dyrus, though, now I want to come back to you and ask you what other of the mistakes that you saw from TSM this game that you specifically would like to see them shore up quicker or sooner rather than later?
Well, starting with that staying bottom where Doublelift and Biofrost were like overconfident, because it's like one of those things where your pressure's top side, time to play safe bot side. P1 made a really good calculated play by punishing them bottom. It's really, really nice to see that even the lower teams are able to make that decision making where, oh, we can punish here, instead of, I mean, maybe they're not being used to being punished there.
Yeah.
But anyways, there's a lot of like free deaths. For example, Hanser could have had a solo kill on Ziggs top. There's a couple of kills where the team would overextend, and if they just let their teammate slowly kill them, they could have got it. It was more like it felt like they were very overconfident, and they weren't the same TSM from last game. But on the other side of the coin, P1 had a lot of good engage, like Mark said, talking about team comps and such.
Well, I think a good point that Dyrus had when we were watching was that there was initial blue buff invade from Sven that turned bad and he died. And I think, normally when you see Gragas Rek'Sai, Gragas is going to have pressure for a lot of that early game, pre-6, and then you have to start worrying about the Rengar ganks. And to have the game already start falling off the rails even that early is a bad sign. And I think you were pointing out that like they seemed off after that for the whole rest of the game.
So, before we move on, so when Sven died there, they still made the 4-man play bottom, but the next plays they made bottom, like they didn't play around the jungler pressure. And that's because Gragas was slightly behind of Rengar because of the first blood. And that's where Enori's great play comes in.
Well, and you mentioned overconfidence maybe for TSM, whether it's overconfidence or overreaching 24 minutes into the game, attempting a Baron here, a sneaky Baron with just 2 members. They get caught out by Phoenix One and tremendously punished in a full ace plus Baron for Phoenix One.
I personally think they don't need to go for this play. If you're confident you're a better team, this is like a cheesy, well, we're losing the game, we'll probably lose anyways play. But I don't think the game was at that state yet. And as soon as they get caught out here and seen by P1, it's basically over. You have Sivir, Rengar chase down, Rumble ult, you're pinned in the pit. I mean, I know Lucian can kind of dash out, but it's so easy for P1 to get on top of you there that once you're seen, the play is busted, and it's really hard to salvage. So I think it was just a little unnecessary to look for that.
I think it was one of those mindsets where it's like, oh no, we're losing, we're going to get outscaled.
Right.
To make a decisive play to come back into the game, which is correct, but it might have not been that moment yet. But it might have been better for them to like do it that way, to like clear their minds and reset, because the only thing that's going to allow them to have a disadvantage in the series is if they tilt really hard.
Exactly, and Phoenix One pick up a big advantage there. The next kind of example of maybe tilt that we saw was the weird decision making from TSM to try and engage and catch somebody out bot lane and allow Enori to solo finish the game by pushing up that mid inhib. So once again, it just like they made this decision that our only way back in is to catch these 3 members out on the bot side. That's not the case, and they pay for it.
Right, I think at that point you are in a lot of trouble.
For sure.
Yeah, so I understand trying to make something happen and maybe ruin their Baron buff if you're able to get a pick and push out sideways, but it didn't work out that way. I see the idea that they were thinking. It's just that didn't quite work how they planned it, obviously, but I do think that Baron play was a little forced. You can maybe try and split the Trundle and move the Taliyah over. You have this global option, and they didn't go for that.
So uncharacteristic kind of lapse in judgment from TSM here. Do have to talk about player of the game, Enori on that Rengar. One, whipping out the new champion here. That's definitely going to throw some people for a loop. And beyond that first kind of, botched gank, played this champion very well. We had multiple fights where he, as an assassin, was actually 1v3ing people.
Right, I think the best example of that was the one where TSM set a brush camp up in the top river, cut off the Rumble, and then he comes flying in after TSM used a bunch of abilities and just starts bopping people one after the other and using brush to brush to brush to finally end up on top of Bjergsen and kill him. It was a very impressive.
Have you run into Enori's Rengar?
Very long ago. Okay. And I did see a tweet from him where he got Korean Challenger before he left, so very solid Rengar, it looks like. It was one of those things where he just positioned really well, while TSM kind of tunneled all into one target, whereas the Rumble or the Malzahar, and then they just use their ults, and Enori kind of cleans up.
I absolutely love it. The Rengar is peering right over
your
the
camera
shoulder.
shot.
It was so great. It was like, as you're talking about it, you literally have a Rengar about to jump out at you from the bush. Well, that's game 2, but we have ourselves a series. Stick around because we'll return with the game-deciding game between TSM and Phoenix One. We'll be right back.
Hehe XD. I'll give it a hehe XD too, dude. Run left. Oh my God, I got you, run left. Trundle no flash. Trundle no flash. Nice. Mid flash.
It's fighting on 2 fronts, and Phoenix One are cleaning up with Enori and Gate. That's a flash from Bjergsen, but he will fall.
Lucian. No dashi. Trundle slow. Nice. Trundle. Let's go.
Rushing down right now. The last turn teleport being used.
It's too late. It's gonna go down before TP comes in.
Cancelled match gets the kill. Enori's on the Nexus. I cannot believe it.
This could be it.
One. They're able to spoil TSM off the back of Enori.